history of Fyrom, the creation of the so-called Macedonia, a communist plan against democracy and history. After the Balkan Wars of 1912 and 1913 and the dissolution of the Ottoman Empire, most of its European-held territories were divided among Greece, Bulgaria and Serbia. The territory of Vardasca in the period between 1913 and 1929 was named Južna Serbia, which means Southern Serbia. After the First World War, Serbia became part of the Kingdom of Serbs, Croats and Slovenes. In 1929, the kingdom was officially renamed to Kingdom of Yugoslavia and divided into provinces which were called Banovians. Southern Serbia, including all what is now called North Macedonia, became known as the Vardar Banovina. This was a province of the Kingdom of Yugoslavia between 1929 and 1941. According to the 1931 Constitution of the Kingdom of Yugoslavia, the Vardar Banovina is bounded on the north by the boundaries of Zetska and Moravska Banovians, and on the east, south and west by the state frontiers with Bulgaria, Greece and Albania. In the Balkan Wars, the Slavic idiom of the population of Vardar was still regarded by the most Slavologists and foreign observers as a Bulgarian dialect. In 1944, Josip Broz Tito, sorry if I spelled the name wrong, was the communist dictator of Yugoslavia. As leader of the Communist Party, he promoted the concept of a separate nation Vardasca, without national ties to Bulgaria, enabling him to gain full control of Vardar Banovina and justify retaining it as part of the Yugoslav Federation. During the misappropriation of the name Macedonia, Tito also created a mythic language which includes Slavic letters and is based on Western Bulgarian dialects, called Macedonian language. The grammar was developed by Krume Kepevsky in 1944. Later it got codified by Blaze Koneski. Tito rewrote and falsificated history by using fables and propaganda to distort the integrity and heritage of the region. According to Fyromian nationalists, this map shows the so-called Greater Macedonia, which existed around the beginning of the 20th century. But actually, this map shows the place Macedonia under Ottoman control, which got liberated by the Greeks a few years later. By looking on an ethnic map, you realize that at these times Bulgarians, Turks, etc. had lived there, and not Fyromians. To clarify more why Tito wanted to create this fake Macedonian nation in order to eradicate their Bulgarian identity by reducing Bulgaria's influence in Skopje, we must mention that in 1941, when Hitler's army entered Skopje, there were thousands of Bulgarian flags there to greet them, and the German army was welcomed as liberators. Ethnologically, Tito's new Slavic Macedonian Republic was to be forget out of a population with ethnic and linguistic ties to Albania, Bulgaria, Serbia and even Greece. In the first document ever written in Fyromian language, historical figures were promoted as being Fyromian. A typical example is Alexander the Great, who had, according to the document, built the so-called ancient Macedonian Empire. He was mentioned as a Slav from Fyrom. But this is nothing more than a lie. Slavs came many centuries later after Alexander's death, so how he can be a Slav? In 1940, official Yugoslav census recognized only two large ethnic groups in Vardar, Slavic Christians at 63% and Muslims at 31%. In 1945, 3 years after the formation of Fyrom, the Slavs magically disappeared from the census and were replaced by 66% Macedonians. These were the reasons and means for the creation, falsification and propaganda of Fyrom. Dear Fyromians, tolerance and provocations have their limits, and you exceeded them. Now you cannot escape from the truth.